The upload schedule of my channel remains as one of the biggest running jokes in my community. Since I only upload every blue moon or so, I usually stick with topics that I enjoy to make the most of the limited time that you'll be hearing my voice in a structured format. But hey, I'm not above wasting time, so let's talk about a game that I don't like. Around 5 years ago... Time flies, doesn't it? I made a joke post on Twitter making reference to the recently released Overwatch, which was going through a really dumb controversy at the time involving a victory pose for Tracer. I jokingly said I'd make a video talking about this dumb subject. People said they wanted it, so I made it, with a dumb title and thumbnail alongside it. The real joke was on me, since, as of recording, this is the most viewed video on my channel. Which is funny in hindsight, since 5 years later, I really don't care about the subject of this video at all. Since this video is coming out around the time the original video was uploaded, I decided to close the book on my opinions on Overwatch, and cut out this old video from my online presence. It'll still be watchable via direct links. I'm just tired of YouTube parading around a glorified shitpost as if it's my best work. Then again, I checked and things are starting to feel a little timely, since Overwatch was put on Steam a little while ago to, less than accepting fanfare. Well, I'm starting to feel a little vindicated. I might as well start with my history with the game. For a lot of people, Blizzard were the trailblazers of the game industry, with classic game after classic game under their belt. I was entirely playing on consoles up until I started college, so unfortunately none of their games were on my radar until Diablo 3 was getting a PS4 release. But at the time I didn't really care for dungeon crawlers. I did see a lot of World of Warcraft ads growing up though. They got Mr. T for one of them. That was pretty wild stuff.
What's your game?
However, after getting into PC gaming a year or so prior by upgrading to a desktop, I decided to buy Overwatch on a whim after hearing nothing but praise from my friends and people around me at the time. Like the average Joe, I saw all those animated trailers showing off the characters and was floored by how the game looked. Keep in mind that when Overwatch was released, an entire era of gritty, realistic FPS games had passed by. So looking at a shooter that had the aesthetic of a Pixar film was a breath of fresh air. It also came out in the same window as another colorful shooter called Battleborn. I wonder what happened to that one. Oh, well that sucks. I wasn't too big into FPSs, but something about Overwatch clicked for me. Characters had guns, but instead of requiring you to manage ammo, you were asked to make the most of your shots before sitting through a lengthy reload animation. Instead of every character having their differences just be their choice of gun, all the characters have a unique set of abilities, and you have to manage their cooldowns in between firefights while completing tasks. None of these tasks were incredibly original, mind you, since Team Fortress 2 did the exact same thing years ago, but Overwatch just felt different enough to stand out. And unlike TF2, it was approachable to a new player, though the one thing that stood out was the cast of characters. People poked fun at how each part of the roster seemed to pander to some aspect of nerd culture, but what I appreciate is that most of the characters felt different from one another, to a degree where the sky was the limit. Yeah, we had a soldier with an aimbot, an undead edgelord with shotguns, a walking StarCraft/Evangelion reference, and an anime ninja. And there was still room to grow. New characters were definitely a highlight, since unlike so many games I've seen before, these were given to all players for free, no strings attached, no bizarre grinding, or anything like that. Man, if only things stayed that way. I found the few game modes to be pretty fun, especially with friends, since you get bonus XP for having them along for the ride. There wasn't much early on, but the map diversity did help out in the long run. Competitive was cancer though. Hell, at times playing with random people could result in the most miserable experience out there. Remember when you could select multiple of the same hero and subsequently spam the same ultimate? That sucked. I had plenty of fun for a good while, but over time problems started to pile up, and that eroded away my enthusiasm for the game. Don't worry, I didn't forget the elephant in the room. The fucking loot boxes. While Blizzard wasn't the first to push for this in an FPS, nor were they the most egregious with their inclusion, Overwatch was definitely a popularizer of these garbage crates, with more filler than content. The only thing you can unlock is cosmetics from these packages, but they range from cool costumes that change up the character's entire model, to pointless crap that floods up the unlock pool. And with the passage of time, there were just so many pointless sprays and logos that getting the chance to unlock anything worth a damn just became tedious. There's also the FOMO-based time events, where certain costumes were only available on specific times of the year. I had a miserable time trying to unlock the Sentai skin for Genji, and I was just left grinding away non-stop until I got enough in-game credits just to buy the thing directly. And somehow Blizzard found a way to make things worse later on. Early on, when new characters were introduced, I was excited since they felt distinct from one another, Hammond being the most notable example. He visually stands out from the cast, but he fits in when put next to other characters like Winston and Diva. But as time went on, like after Doomfist came out, it felt like some of the newer characters were aesthetically a downgrade from the vanilla cast. Brigitte and Ashe felt like variations on the main cast, which was fine, and as mentioned earlier, Wrecking Ball looked different, but was good, in my opinion. Moira looked fine, but her alternate skins look terrible. Baptiste looks generic. Sigma fits with the game's world, but doesn't look like anything special. And after I quit the game, Echo came out, and that face was drenched in the uncanny valley. It's not like new equals bad. Sombra, for example, is a post-launch character, and personally, she has my favorite design in the entire game's cast, and I want her to step on me. I know that some people are going to comment that these characters have a playstyle that's way more interesting than just how they look, but presentation did play a role as to why I liked this game in the first place. So Overwatch becoming more visually bland as time moved forward is not a good thing. The gameplay was also starting to grate on me, since the growing demand for team compositions meant that I was constantly restricted into playing specific characters. Blizzard introduced a mandatory requirement to general play by filtering out players to use very specific character classes. In other words, not enough people were picking healers, so they made the game bully the average player into picking that class, as opposed to players just doing it to each other in the middle of a match. And honestly, at some point I was only playing with friends because playing with random people wasn't fun anymore. When I noticed that, I made the conscious decision to just stop playing the game for a while and come back later. At that point, Blizzard will have patched out the annoying parts of the game, and I'll go back to having fun, right? Blizzard is not a good company. That's not a shocking statement today, but during the height of Overwatch's popularity, they were the game company that could do no wrong, as long as we don't acknowledge the Error 37 incident. However, something happened, and for a decent chunk of time, they became the company that couldn't do a single thing right. Warcraft 3 got remastered, and according to Warcraft fans, it was awful. The game itself was a technical nightmare, it made the original version inaccessible, and all of the user-made content would become property of Activision Blizzard on the off chance that someone used this game to make something more fun. At BlizzCon, they announced a new Diablo game, a free-to-play spin-off exclusive to mobile devices. Now, when someone dared to ask if a franchise that thrived on PC was getting a PC port, a spokesperson for Blizzard gave one of the worst responses I've ever heard in my entire life.
We don't have any plans at the moment to do PC. Do you guys not have phones?
Yeah, you guys all have phones, right?
It's not a massive leap to say that taking the piss out of potential customers isn't a good way to get them interested in to buy your shitty product. However, all of these mistakes were only small pints of salt in the open wound that was the Blitzchung controversy. On October 6, 2019, a Hearthstone player rocked the boat by referencing a protest happening in Hong Kong at the time. Blizzard responded by banning the player, forcing him to forfeit any prize money that he earned, and just because they weren't big enough pricks, they fired the 2 hosts just for being on screen in the same clip. Which, if you saw the clip, they were very much uncomfortable and didn't want to be there. This left such a bad enough taste in my mouth that I gave up on Blizzard. And subsequently, I removed all of their software from my computer. Unless something changed. And yeah, things did change. Just not for the better. I'm going to cut the list of Blizzard's non-Overwatch related mistakes here, because if I listed all the bad things the company did, I would be here all day. Actually, I might as well take a hot minute to talk about Overwatch's occasional bit of controversy. Mostly because it was funny to watch people argue that the game became unplayable after Tracer and Soldier 76 were confirmed to be gay. Or, in hindsight, to see exactly how many people took time out of their day to talk about Tracer's ass, as if it was a serious problem. The reason why I want to mention these small controversies is because while the internet likes to make a mountain out of a molehill, there was this idea thrown around that Blizzard would only make announcements if they wanted to distract from bad press they were getting at the time. I didn't agree with this for a long time, but announcing an entire game without much gameplay to show off during a year of PR disasters is a different story. In the middle of all this controversy, Blizzard announces Overwatch 2 to mixed fanfare. Most people were still mad at the company, but a lot of people were excited to see their favorite game with a shinier coat of paint. One of the big new features was some PvE content that allowed players to play the game against enemies in structured levels, and it was going to have a skill tree to encourage replay value. This was especially interesting since the Pixar-style trailers for Overwatch implied that there was a bigger story to be told, and I do recall fans begging for some form of a story mode since the first game had launched. A lot of people were still mad though, with the big complaint being the fact that there was barely any gameplay shown off. Just a cinematic trailer and a new logo. Now, I didn't follow the press leading up to the game, but if there was any noteworthy changes to warrant a sequel, I didn't hear much about it. Prior to the game coming out, I also saw no reason to even participate in the beta, since the game, from what I can tell, it looked basically the same, but like, from what I saw, the UI looked worse. In my opinion, the maps were offering a change in the time of day, but that only made them look more washed out because many of them were never intended to have their lighting altered so drastically. Hell, some of the changes to character designs that are meant to give them a big glow up was just a mixed bag at best. Seriously, how the fuck do you whitewash a white guy? But you know what? All of this doesn't matter. Gamers TM were still mad about all of Blizzard's failings, and they were gonna boycott this game so hard the company would feel the pain where it hurt the most: their wallet. Now, it's important to note that I haven't played Overwatch 2, and honestly, I don't plan on doing so just for a YouTube video. All of this is from the perspective of somebody just wanting to know why they should pick the game up. What was added in to make me feel like I'm really missing out? And with that said, Overwatch 2 launched to a massive amount of players, contrary to all the real capital G gamers demanding Blizzard to change their ways. It's almost like all this yelling was done by people that are perpetually full of shit. The game replaced all the loot boxes with a big old battle pass, and I absolutely despise this modern trend. Nothing like turning a game that I would play for fun into a second job that I don't even get paid for. But hey, you can buy stuff directly now. Just ignore the fact that the price tags are pretty high. There was also a new character introduced. I had to double check that it was a new character and not D.Va outside of her mech. Look, I have no clue what's going on at the dev team, but when a dude that isn't tuning into Overwatch news religiously can't tell two of your characters apart, there might be a problem with what you're asking the artist to draw up. Also, for some asinine reason, she was locked into the battle pass, so new players just couldn't use the new character exclusive to the sequel. Hell, it didn't even launch with the PvE content the game was marketed around. But you know what Blizzard did do? Make Overwatch 1 unplayable. Now, I've acknowledged Team Fortress 2 in this video, and while that game is suffering from a lack of support from its own dev team, you can still play it, and Team Fortress Classic as well. I don't understand this pathological obsession with making old content unavailable, but this is just disgusting. Old games should have just as much place next to your shiny new ones. Don't be shocked when people go to pirate your stuff if you keep doing this. Anyhow, after the launch of Overwatch 2, the developers said they would add in the big new feature of PvE to the game sometime later. Well, it is indeed later, so let's look at the masterful content that they have been working so hard on to justify this sequel even being made. Damn, I am so impressed right now. Holy shit, this feels like the next big step for video games as a whole. It's so minimalist that you would be mistaken for assuming that there was nothing there. Because there isn't. What the Overwatch team promised was cancelled because they bit off more than they could chew. I'm not gonna insult the people who couldn't deliver on this promise. We should blame the upper management for announcing that they would move the heavens and the earth, and then force these rando devs to sit in front of an angry audience just to announce that they fell short. Now, I'm expecting to get some angry comments pointing out the obvious, and that's the fact that they did in fact release this content. These PvE story missions were sold to the player for $15, with one of them being included in the game for free. These were heavily stripped down from what was advertised, but this content does exist. Though from what I hear, it's more of the seasonal PvE mode from Overwatch 1, but with cutscenes in between each shootout. So I guess this is the big direction that Overwatch is taking to develop its universe? I'm not gonna go down the route of calling the developers lazy, or comparing them to people that make Rule 34 of the Overwatch cast. I'm just going to let my lack of enthusiasm for this latest development of a game that I used to like act as the last nail in this metaphorical coffin. I'm done. Look, if you sat through all the way to the end, I respect the time you invested in my ramblings about a game that the entire internet now hates, but I don't feel like reveling in the game's fall into infamy. Yeah, like everyone else, I thought it was funny that Overwatch 2 got a mostly negative review score on Steam. The second that they left the Battle.net hug box, the game was put on blast, and it was the top grossing game that day. Think about that. A game that so many people hate, and it made a metric ton of money. And it's not even the only example. Remember Diablo Immortal? It was put on blast non-stop from announcement to release. And it still made a metric shit ton of money. I'm not participating in this game anymore. As far as I'm concerned, I'm just done talking about the series and the company that made it. I might make an exception if the company does something shockingly bad in the realm of the Cosby Room situation, which, yes, is a thing. I don't know what's wrong with these people. Or maybe I might make an exception if they unionize or something positive. But I just don't want to play this weird YouTuber game where I complain about a company 1 minute and then be the first person in line to talk about their latest overhyped failure the next. Other companies have problems, but they also make more interesting games, and I don't feel anywhere near as unclean when I have to acknowledge the process of its production. This year alone has shown that there are too many good experiences coming out to waste any amount of time talking about bad products, or daisy-chaining my online presence to them because one video got popular. The link for that old video will be in the description. Now if you'll excuse me, I'll be moving on to other things. Like, comment, subscribe, and all that. And with that said, I'll catch you all in the next video. Have a nice day.